All right, it is now 4:35, so we'll go ahead and get started with the Finance Subcommittee meeting. I just want to acknowledge everyone that's on the Zoom, and I'll start with the counselors. And I want to thank Counselor Tim Allen, who's on the subcommittee, for joining us. Counselor Adam Gomez, who's also part of the subcommittee, for joining us. Counselor President Justin Hurst, thank you for joining us. Counselor Jesse Letterman, thank you for joining us. And to the finance team, Lindsay Hackett, Tim Brown, and Pat Burns. Oh, Chris Caputo, I see you down there. Thank you for joining us. And the great member of our community, Kathy Brown, thank you for joining us. And TJ is joining as well. So just give him a minute to get on. TJ, thank you for joining us. We are just now getting started with the meeting. So we're just basically going to go down the agenda and start with the November revenue and expenditures. So Pat, you can take it away.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Whitfield. Tonight you have the November revenue versus expenditure report. A few of the highlights I wanted to point out. In the month of November, the police education incentive known as the Quinn bill, that payment is made, and this year it totaled $3,375,000. Also, the school department budget, the council voted on a supplemental budget at the December 7th meeting. That reduction of $15.7 million is not reflected in this report, but it will be in the December report. And also,
can you repeat that amount, Pat?
Excuse me?
Can you repeat that amount?
Sure. It 15.7 million. It was to reduce the school department budget to match the governor's budget. The school department had been using the governor's budget from last January, and that was corrected by the council. And also, I'll point out that the dispatch department, sorry about that, my light went out, has actually 2 grants that they'll be moving salaries to. Those are both state grants. So you'll notice that their expenditures seem high at this point, but they do have grant funds that they will be moving expenses already incurred off onto.
So are the grants COVID related? That's why they can move them? Like, why are they able to move the salaries to these grants?
No, these are the state 911 grant that they receive every year that they built into the budget as an offset to their salaries. So it's standard practice. They just need to send over the reclass forms to us so we can process them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues or anyone regarding Councilor Gomez?
Thank you so much. I know that I think that he brought up a little bit about the education kind of conversation about how they, and my question was, I know that in the last meeting that, and I don't know who's going to answer this question. Maybe it's not him, it's probably TJ, but they asked, they voted on the superintendent's raise, and which was I guess they approved a raise, not the school committee approved a raise. Can we talk about that right now?
I'm not prepared to have a conversation because I'm not even, I know he had his review. I'm not sure if the vote actually happened. I'd have to check with the school committee.
Okay, so I'll talk to you a little bit offline about it. Now, then it just segues into, it's not necessarily the actual, how much it is or what's the percentage. I know the vote did happen, but if you're not prepared, I don't want to jam you up as of now. But we are going through because of COVID, right? And that's what my real question is. We've had a hiring freeze this year, yes?
Correct. We've had a hiring freeze, and we actually have not given raises to any of the city side employees.
All right. And then also, just another question, just to follow up on that. We weren't funded the way we should have been funded through the state, through that Student Opportunity Act as well, right?
That is correct.
All right. So And then are we at risk of maybe in the next fiscal year? I know that you balanced the budget a little bit, or you're working on that as of now because it's not in front of us, of losing any kind of employment on the school side?
At this point, no, they have
Any layoffs?
No, they're fully prepared with their own hiring freeze and spending freeze, for the most part, to be ready to adapt to any changes made in the budget process. So they have their contingency plans already in place.
All right, fantastic. I think that's just enough questions for now, specifically to that, and then I'll follow up with you on, because I know the vote did happen. Obviously, he brought up the educational kind of component of talking about that, so it kind of just opened the door for me to lean into to ask that question, and then I can work with you or whenever there's another, probably the next year, talking about that question, because obviously I am looking into the fact of, we're in a fiscal downturn and looking out, without having a hiring freeze, giving out raises is it just seems unprecedented. And just to me, and it's just my personal opinion, I'm not talking for you or anybody else. I just feel it was just a concern.
Understood. We can talk offline.
All right, no problem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Gomez. But I think that's a great point. TJ, when we do a hiring freeze for the city, the school department isn't included in that? Like they make their own financial determinations if there's going to be a hiring freeze or not? Or if raises will be given or not?
Yes, they make the determination based, so I don't know how to answer that the easiest way. Yes, they're run by the school committee, and the school committee voted to give out raises to some employees. And they wanted to have conversations about unions, and we're not prepared for that conversation yet. So there have been some raises given out, and I'm not prepared to talk about all that, but I can certainly look into it for you.
So some are per union contract, which is understandable, but some are just voted on?
Correct.
Okay.
Authorized by the school committee, based upon whatever. So they control the budget, and the superintendent implements the budget. So if they choose to give out pay raises, there's not much the mayor can really do about it for the school side of it.
Okay. Thank you, TJ, for that clarification. I think Councilor Gomez made really, really great points because of what we're going through financially in COVID. That seems a little bit unprecedented. I'll just leave it at that and move on to the next agenda item if there's no more questions.
Counselor, just a quick add to that. I appreciate your response, TJ, but the mayor absolutely has some control over it in that he votes for it, and voted for it, right?
Right.
I just want to make that clarification, TJ.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
Oh yeah, because he is the chair, right?
He is the captain.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Councilor Hurst, for that. I don't know, I keep muting myself for some reason. I'm so used to doing it all day. So we'll just move on from there to the next agenda item. And that is the Brownsfield Bay Street grant.
Yeah, so this is a $250,000 grant from Mass Development to Economic Development. It's to clean up 846 and 876 Bay Street over in the corner of Roosevelt and Bay.
And I did want to mention, TJ, that in the document that came to us about this Brownsfield grant, it says that it's going to Lyman Street. So I don't know if that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, so so it's a typo that we need to amend on the floor if it needs to be made to be 846 and 876 Bay Street.
Okay.
Good catch. I was hoping you wouldn't see it.
Okay, so we can amend that up. Thank you, TJ. I just wanted to make sure that we're correct when we approve it. Okay. And then any questions on that? Oh, Jesse, Councilor Letterman? Oh, and Councilor Allen after? Sorry, guys.
I'm actually all set, Madam Chair. I just looked it up on Google Maps. I thought it was a different site. This is all set.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councilor Letterman. Councilor Allen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, TJ, who's doing the work on that? Is that we get this grant, but who's doing the work?
That's an excellent question. I don't know if it's been bid out yet, but I will defer that question to Brian Connors when he gets on later this evening.
So it's not necessarily done internally by Pete,
No,
is it Pete, not a Pete Garvey project?
this is not a Pete Garvey project. This is a Kathy Bono economic development project.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to know who's doing that. Thanks.
Councilor Letterman?
Madam Chair, actually, I do have a question about this particular site. TJ, do we own this?
We do own this land and it's dirty in the sense that's why we have the brownfields money coming in, is to help us do remediation on the site.
Okay, I drove by this morning coincidentally, and there was a bunch of debris stacked in here, agricultural debris. Is that ours?
That actually, I believe, belongs to Northern Tree, who will be, I guess, using the site for tree debris or whatever the project is for Northern Tree.
Well, why is Northern Tree storing large amounts of debris on city-owned land?
It's an excellent question. I do not have that answer. I can ask Tim Sheehan or Brian Connors of that question.
I would love to know why Northern Tree is storing large amounts of debris on city-owned property. I'd love to know if they're paying us for that. And I'd love to know what the intent for the land is after we do the brownfield cleanup. And I would like to know that before we vote on it tonight.
So Brian will hopefully have the answers that you need for all that. I will call Pat Sullivan to ask him the Northern Tree question between this meeting and the 6:30 meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Great questions, Counselor. I didn't drive by there, so I'm glad you did. Thank you. Any other questions regarding this Brownsville grant? All righty. The Emergency Management Performance Grant.
Yep, so this grant is for the fire department to get a specialized vehicle to respond to brush fires across the city. Also has a utility trailer, generators, and all the equipment needed to fight wildfires.
I don't see any hands in the queue. So we will move on to the FFY 21 Municipal Road Safety Grant.
So
It should be FFY.
I don't know what it says on the agenda. Hold on. This is a $40,000 grant for the police department to allow for the traffic safety program through winter impaired driving, distracted driving, click it or ticket, speed enforcement, or summer impaired driving. 5 different types of traffic enforcement mobilizations through this grant.
So safe driving for worker, employees, or
Just
for residents?
residents, so you're gonna have an event in the winter, a distracted driving event in April, a click it or ticket event in May, speed enforcement in June, and summer impaired driving in August.
Okay.
And this is formally the STEP grant. I don't know, counselors, if you remember, usually it's an annual grant we approve for the police department, traffic safety enforcement programming. And FFY is the federal fiscal year. And that's how we receive this money.
Where do these events take place? Like it's click it or ticket, like you stand there and you put the monitor on the license plate, and if they're speeding, it's click it or ticket, or they don't have their seatbelts on. Is it like that? Is it set up like on the road?
I don't know if the police department would give me that information, but I'd love to know myself.
Oh, so it's like a surprise?
Yeah.
Okay. Surprise events to catch people?
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought it was more like an awareness program where they, give some awareness to the community. Councilor Gomez?
No, I don't think this is the same kind of, but sometimes this funding comes in and they had like, not the click of the ticket, but it was like that time when they're doing the campaign of staying off your phone.
Yeah.
And me not realizing the new protocol. There was one time I had my phone just in my hand and I was on my GPS, and it doesn't even matter. It's just the phone can't be in your hand. And early on, before Commissioner Clapper was even a commissioner, when I was a young kid, she was like, "I'm going to give you a pass, but because it's the time frame of the warnings, but don't have your hands on your phone." So it's kind of funny. So it's like they and then sometimes what they do is they'll actually wait at the corner at the light, and they'll sit there, and you're wondering why there's a cop at the light standing there, and it's just that's how they give you the outreach. They'll say, "Hey, put your seatbelt on," or if that was, now it's the law now, but it's just interesting enough, you find out the hard way.
Yeah, I didn't want to find out the hard way. I was like, give me the details so I'll know what to do in the area. Thank you, Councilor Gomez. Let's see. Next on the agenda is the FY21 Community Foundation of Western Mass donation for Old First Church for $39,200.
Yeah, so we're the, when we purchased Old First Church, we became the beneficiary of an endowment to maintain the building and the organ. So this is just accepting the $39,200 annual amount.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, moving right along. Police Message Achievers Grant, 22,000. Achiever Grant, 22,000.
Yep, so this is for them to purchase an email storage system to meet the new requirements of compliance and making sure that they can do e-discovery. So they purchased the Barracuda Cloud, and they'll have secure long-term email storage and backup. So if there's freedom of information requests, they have access to the information.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a question,
Sure.
Madam Chairman. I apologize.
Sure.
What's the Barracuda Cloud? I'm just curious. I just want to know what that is.
It's the cloud store. I don't know about this one, but the cloud storage system that they elected to purchase is through the company Barracuda. So I'm assuming it's a subscription to their cloud service to keep the emails.
No, I'm gonna segue to the reason why is because sometimes when we send emails out to the council, sometimes I always get a jump back email depending on what email I'm using, and it says Barracuda at something, and I always wonder like who's Barracuda, but you probably answered it. I think it has to do with the system that we're using.
The city has the Barracuda system to help filter out spam, and that's what you're getting. Sent back to you is Barracuda's flagging emails and saying they're not deliverable.
Okay, now I get it. All right, it just hit me after 4 years. I was wondering, like, yo, there's somebody Barracuda. We got something going on here. But no, now I know. All right,
there you go.
Appreciate that. You just figured it. I just figured it out. I had an aha moment.
That's great. FY21 Shine Grant COVID amendment increase for $3,307.23.
This is just an increase for the Shine Grant that provides assistance for low-income Medicare plans, Part D, and enrollment in state pharmaceutical and prescription drug plans. This is just a small increase for the Elder Affairs Office.
Any questions, comments? All right, moving right along. Bills of a prior year for various departments, $144,472.40.
Yeah, so there's two for the city council. Small amounts, and then personnel has three totaling, what is it, 125 to 135,000 or so for unemployment. This is a bill we received from the UTCA, our unemployment provider, of an increase in the unemployment costs from last year. We are paying the bill, but we still feel that we need more information on why they didn't send us an invoice during fiscal year 20 and what the increase was. So we're asking authority to pay the bill, and then we'll, if anything, if we need to put it towards next year's bills, because if we get any credits, we'll report back to the city council.
How much is that specific bill?
26,000 for April, 49,000 for May, 63,000 for June, is the amounts that I have here. And that's based upon an increase. They said the increase is due to COVID. We haven't really laid off anybody. I know we didn't fill a number of seasonal positions during the hiring freeze. So we're trying to get more information. So I will report back once we know more as to why the bills are increasing and why they didn't invoice us.
Thank you. And my final question is, what's the STCC BOPY?
The bill of a prior year for the city council's, what you guys did an off-site meeting or did a meeting that was facilitated by I thought it was Springfield College, not Stick.
Yeah, it was Springfield College, that's why.
So it's just to pay the $350 bill for them,
Okay,
for Springfield College.
okay. Counselor Allen? You're on mute, Counselor.
Thank you. So TJ, normally the bills of prior year are a few $100s or pretty small amounts that seem like they could easily, you know, be forgotten about, or they don't add up to much. But this one is big. Did this one, you guys not expect this one, or how could something this big?
Yeah, so that's why we're asking all these questions, Counselor, because when it was brought to my attention a couple weeks ago, I asked for an explanation. The original explanation didn't answer anything except for saying costs are going up. So we are going back and trying to get a further explanation and do it and really figure out. Because typically what we would do is if we knew they were coming, we'd carry over the requisition or the encumbrance, and then we just pay the bill. We didn't carry it over because this was outside the normal business that we were doing. So
We carried money over, but it wasn't enough. So we carried over the average monthly cost, which is about $9,000. And these bills ended up being closer to $30,000 a month. So we did carry over money. You know, we make these decisions back in March or April to try to protect out closing out the year, and we keep the encumbrances as well as we can. But with the costs increasing that much, we just didn't carry over enough money.
Okay, thanks. So who is it for? Who's it to?
unemployment is UTCA, which is their unemployment vendor. That's based
Okay.
here in Springfield.
Just to clarify, part of the reason it's up is because if an employee had worked for us and had put in payments for unemployment insurance as an employee of the city, even a temporary position, and then they left the city and then are laid off later at a different job, we're still charged for it. So it's a state bill that we have to pay, or else there's a penalty. I think we'll get credits back for a number of these employees because they're not actually city employees when they were laid off.
Was it related to COVID or any of the strangeness of 2020?
Yeah, that was the explanation we got, is that because people who had temp jobs with the city later got laid off within the next 12 months, all of those, basically went to our charges from the state. So we're going to pay those now, and then we should be getting credits later.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is this unemployment insurance part of what was audited last year, like we discussed? Or was that a different?
That's a different one. So we've, a few years ago or so, I can get the dates, we actually left our old vendor to go to UCTA, and they actually have helped us avoid a lot of unemployment costs, just by doing some auditing of how we, whether a person was laid off, whether they resigned, whether they submitted a letter of resignation, whether they were terminated. A lot of times, especially in the school department, when people would leave to go to grad school, they would just say, hey, I'm done just teaching this school year, I'm going to go to grad school. They go to grad school and say they got let go, and then they file for unemployment benefits. But had they submitted a letter of resignation, they wouldn't be allowed to collect unemployment benefits. So we started tightening up our practices, both city and schools. The schools saved probably over $1 million by tightening up their practice. We probably saved a few $100,000 by doing this, and they've been a great vendor for us to really help us get control of these costs.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to budget transfer within a department for $117,000.
So 100,000 of the 117,000 is being moved from salaries into professional services. And it's gonna cover two things. One, it would be a contract with, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on who it's with. The mission to do the new office that was created during the FY21 budget. I'm totally drawing a blank.
Office of Racial Equity?
Office of Racial Equity, I know they just appointed a director, and I think they want to do some of the work through, instead of doing it as hiring employees, they want to do it through a subcontractor. that can go out and do the work with the officers. And Helen, I believe, will be on.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. They subcontract with Missions Inc.
Thank you.
to do the outreach, some of the outreach portion of that work. Yeah. Gotcha.
And then 17,000 of it is Helen Colton Harris is asked to use the space on the 3rd floor of her office on 311 State Street for contract tracing. This is just to be an increase to the lease of that property of roughly $17,000.
Any other questions from the council on this?
No.
Seeing none, order authorizing a quick claim deed for the sale of property at Westside Wilbraham Ave to the First Resource Development Company for $11,000.
You said as much as information as I have.
I guess we'll wait to the meeting
Yeah,
to get more information. And so the discussion on free cash and the discussion on CDBG funds is going to be tabled because of my life. I didn't get a chance to speak with the finance team, and I think it would be unfair to ask them for information off the cuff, and I didn't give them the opportunity to research it. And so we're going to table that discussion until a later finance meeting. And I just want to thank you guys for your flexibility there. And I'm sorry I couldn't, get you the information that I was looking for or schedule a meeting ahead of time. So thank you for understanding. So with that, that's it on the agenda for today.
All right.
All right, so we will, I will. Thank you, TJ. Thank you, finance team. Thank you, everybody. And we will adjourn this meeting and we'll see you all at, what, 6:30?
Yes, 6:30. No public
6:30.
speak out.
Okay, thank you,
Right.
Counselor.